days ago, and this clearly demonstrates the administration's commitment to creating the right environment for sustainable socio-economic growth of our nation. In the gas policy, liquefied petroleum gas, LPG, has been identified as a viable source of stimulation for the socio-economic growth of our nation. Historically, Nigeria's LPG consumption has been declining until Nigeria LNG Limited intervened in 2007 by guaranteeing domestic supply. Since then, our nation's total domestic LPG consumption has grown from just below 50,000 metric tons per annum to approximately 400,000 metric tons per annum. Consumption of LPG, it translates to a per capita consumption of only less than 2.5 kilograms, which is extremely low compared to the per capita consumption in some African countries such as South Africa, which has 7.28 kilograms, Ghana at 9.45 kilograms, and Morocco at 66.27 kilograms. This level of consumption is yet significantly lower than the 1.5 million tons per annum potential consumption estimated by the World Bank in 2002, and 3.8 million tons per annum projected consumption estimated in the Nigerian LNG domestic LPG study of 2016. Most of the LPG produced in our nation today is exported, and although our consumption level is low, over 40% of our domestic consumption in 2015, over 40% of our domestic production in 2015 was imported. This domestic consumption, in 2015 was imported. This impacts on our foreign exchange outlay and limits domestic supply of LPG. Notwithstanding the superior health, environmental, and energy costs of LPG over other competing fuels like kerosene, etc. My iPad has just gone off. I just have the other. Thank you. Health, environmental, and energy cost equivalents of LPG over other competing fuels like kerosene, firewood, and coal. The low level of LPG consumption in Nigeria has resulted in heavy dependence on kerosene and firewood as primary domestic cooking fuel in majority of approximately 36 million Nigerian households. This reliance on kerosene and firewood has substantial economic effect. Government has been undertaking huge subsidies with over $1 billion spent in 2015 on kerosene subsidy. A significantly high rate of deforestation continues to be recorded as over 95.76 million metric tons of firewood was used in 2015. LPG, of course, has considerable benefits. One, it's more cost effective. Two, it provides better health benefits than firewood, kerosene, both of which have been identified as source of more than 50% of over 93,000 deaths recorded due to indoor air pollution annually. LPG is also an alternative to petrol for automotive transportation and can also power industry and small power plants. LPG is easier to handle in cylinders and can be transported in bulk on trucks and via rail to every part of our nation, especially to areas where pipeline gas would not easily get to. The low LPG penetration in Nigeria has been due to a number of factors limiting the availability, accessibility, and acceptability of LPG in comparison with its competing fuels. These factors include: one, the inadequate and inefficient LPG supply infrastructure, which includes coastal and inland receiving and storage facilities, transportation, logistics, bottling, and retail network. Two, the lack of awareness of the benefits of LPG as domestic fuel and its economic advantage over competing fuels. Three, high LPG hardware and startup equipment costs for the low-income earners. These hardware include cylinders, gas burners, valves, hoses, and other accessories. Four, limiting fiscal and and regulatory policies, including subsidies on competing fuels, duties and taxes on both product and equipment. The recent DLPG expansion initiatives. Over the years, there have been numerous initiatives aimed at growing the domestic LPG sector. And several of these initiatives, I'm sure that many here are familiar with the local LPG cylinder manufacturing initiative led by the Nigerian Content Development and Monitoring Board, kerosene firewood to LPG switch in Nigeria initiative led by the NMPC, PPMC, the Interministerial Committee on Kerosene to LPG initiative led by the National Planning Commission, 4, Deforestation Initiative led by the Ministry of Environment, 5, the LPG Market Development Initiative led by the Ministry of Petroleum Resources. But in 2015, the NLNG commissioned an in-depth study of the Nigerian LPG industry, which highlighted that with deliberate intervention across domestic LPG supply and demand value chain, underpinned by the provision of an enabling fiscal and regulatory environment by the government, there is significant potential to achieve market growth in excess of 3.8 million tons per annum within a 10-year period. The report also proposed the harmonization of disparate efforts and initiatives by interest groups, as noted above, to ensure market growth and guarantee its stability. The proposed interventions include 1, the improvement of existing and development of new infrastructure to ensure product availability. 2, the provision of targeted incentives to stimulate investments across the value chain. 3, harmonization of relevant fiscal regimes. 4, the institution of a regulatory compliance framework. 5, the stimulation of inland LPG production. These interventions would, among others, result in significant reduction in the rate of deforestation and create millions of direct and indirect employment opportunities for Nigerians. Success of the interventions would, however, require the collective efforts of the public and private sectors. In conclusion, it's important to mention that in further demonstration of this administration's commitment to the growth of the domestic LPG industry, an interministerial committee on the expansion of domestic LPG in Nigeria has been set up, and I have the privilege of chairing that committee. This committee would oversee the implementation of identified interventions under the domestic LPG expansion framework, starting with the conversion of an initial 4 million households to LPG use as cooking fuel within 2 years, progressing to 10 million households over 5 years, and eventually converting an additional 21 million households over 15 years by addressing the challenges inhibiting market penetration. This committee will be supported by a program management office, which would function in collaboration with the respective stakeholding ministries, departments, and parastatals. The administration will create the right environment for a competitive and sustainable LPG industry, in which the private sector will be the main driver. Consumer rights will be protected, and safety standards would not be compromised. It was William Arthur who once said that opportunities are like sunrises. If you wait for too long, you can miss them. And in the same vein, I invite you as stakeholders in the domestic LPG industry to take full advantage of the opportunities in the value chain, because the current economic climate in our nation makes this certainly the finest moment for doing so, and we must take deliberate steps to revitalize and sustain that